Steve here, and we're going to go over a couple of the different products that we've got here on Off-Road Grind, Bentley Custom Off-Road. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one and show you some of the features, the benefits, and the options that you can have if you decide to get started on something. So first of all, we've got the front high clearance bumper, and I love this bumper. It's the first big thing that I made for the 4Runner, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what we've got on here. So this is a 4th gen, so you've got the typical attachment points, and I've used 3/16 inch steel for the most part through this, and did a little bit of 10 gauge, which is a little bit thicker than 1/8 inch on the wings. That's a nice way to make it a little bit lighter. Still pretty solid and great structure over here. I've got a lot of room in here for a 12,000 pound Badlands winch that I got from Harbor Freight, but I did relocate the solenoid into the engine area because I wanted to get this as high as possible to have as much clearance up at the front end as I could. Now, one of the options that we've got on here is using 1/4 inch steel in some particular areas. So on this particular build, I put a 1/4 inch steel plate for the winch base, and I also have 1/4 inch steel along the sides here, tying into the side part of the frame here up at the front. And I doubled up the 1/4 inch here, so we've got a 1/2 inch of steel for the D-shackles over on here. And I've tied in on this 4th gen our fog lights. They used to be down here low on the bumper, so I tied them into these new fog lights that I got online. And then on the sides here, I put these floodlights I picked up at Harbor Freight, and these are just angled down and out. So for me, I like the ditch light idea, but I don't want them up on the top of my truck by the windshield, so I've just popped them on here. And they work great. I got a switch inside, and these are all tied into, the fog lights are tied into the main battery, because that's where the fog lights are, but these floodlights are tied into a relay that goes into the spare battery. And then these little Raptor lights here, I call them, these are just little pinhole 1/2 inch lights. I just drilled some holes in the top of the bumper, pop these in. These come on whenever I pop the truck on. So I turn the key, they pop on, even before I actually start it up, and I like the way that looks. Here, I like using a lot of square tubing, so I've got square tubing for my sliders and for the roof rack. So I decided to go with square tubing for this grill, but I can do this in round tubing as well. I like the Raptor liner finish. I like the way that dimples up and how hard that is. I live in Texas, so just leaving this outside for a few days in 80-degree heat really hardens it up. It makes it a great, hard, durable finish, and it's super easy to touch up as well if and when it does get scratched. So typically, if I'm going to make a build, a lot of people like the round tubing, so I've got a 1 3/4 inch round tubing that I can use for the main grill, and then 1 inch tubing that I can use for the headlight bars. I think that's a really good look. Eventually, I think I might change this out and put some round tubing in here, although I really do like the way the square tubing turned out here to protect the headlights. And I put those on the back bumper, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and it's already saved our tail lights from trees slamming into the side of the truck as we're off-roading. So anyways, that's the front high clearance steel bumper. Really like the way that turned out. Super durable. Actually, let me pop it open and I can show you the inside of it. So here's our winch. There's a little cover that I threw on there. Keep the elements off, and then get the wiring going in from the winch into the spare battery here. But there's the solenoid that I packed up in here. Just made a little bracket for it to go in over top of the air intake hose. And the wiring for the floodlights over here, just tied that in to a mess of wires over here, but these just all plug and disconnect, so I can pull the bumper off if I needed to. And those pin lights at the front, they just tie in here and come out into one of these wires here. So it all fits in there. That's a big winch, but there's still lots of room in there to fit it, but the solenoid was just going to be too high, so I put that up over there. So that's our front high clearance bumper. Again, 3/16 inch steel for the most part. This bumper weighs about 110 pounds, maybe a little bit more with these bars on here. It's a solid mixture of 3/16, 1/4 inch, and 10 gauge. And for most people, they're going to go with 3/16 all around. And then some of the builds that I've been working on is adding in tubes to the side here, so 1 3/4 inch tubing for the wings instead of the plate steel. That's a good look as well, a little different. But yeah, there's our high clearance front bumper. Worked out great, and it is a beast for going through brush. So there we go.